There is one moment that stands above the rest, right? In 2023, if you're a San Diego sports fan, and we could talk about what else happened because there was a lot, as happens every single year. But there's one moment that stands above the rest. And I honestly want to start with this as we take a look back at 2023 and turn the page to 2024. If anyone wants to weigh in on where they were when this moment happened, I'd love to hear from you. But first, let's take a listen back. You all know where I'm going here. There's one moment that stands above the rest from 2023.
On the drive against AG, puts it up. Short rebound, AG. AG got the rebound. Here are the Aztecs down 1, 4, 3. Lamont Butler. Pull-up jump shot. Good! They're storming the court. Who's going to the championship game? Not FAU. No. The San Diego State Aztecs are going to the NCAA championship game on Monday. How about them Aztecs? How about them boys?
Nothing compares to that in 2023, unless you're CBS Sports' Matt Norlander.
What about Ed? What's his name?
Ed Cooley getting hired from Providence by Georgetown. There was not a bigger sports moment in San Diego in 2023. I'd love to hear from San Diegans, sports fans today. Where were you? Because I guarantee a lot of people listening to us right now or watching us right now on YouTube remember vividly where they were. Maybe you were in Houston at the game. Maybe you're watching on TV. Maybe you were, who knows? Wherever you were, you probably remember where you were. It was a definable sports moment, one of the biggest in the history of the city. If you want to let us know where you were as we kind of look back in 2023, 877-767-4760. Again, our number is 877-767-4760. You can comment in the chat on YouTube. You can text us 70470. Start it with team. Paul Garrison, who's going to join us in 20 minutes, was literally to my left. We were courtside in Houston. He was covering it for the East Village Times, and he was literally the seat to my left. The seat to my right was Ted. And by the way, I thought about this today, Brent. I don't even know if I showed this to you. I think maybe you've seen it. There's a video that was recorded from behind me because I'm in the front row, and Lamont basically pulls up for that, 15 to 17 footer from the right side, and he's right in front of Ted because that's where, we're press row. Ted's right there. Lamont's right there. I'm to the left of Ted. And there's video of me that I never posted anywhere because I'm embarrassed by it.
Oh, when you're jumping all over the place?
Yeah, where I freaked out. But my buddy John Fanta, who was the row behind me, had video of it. He's like, you need to see this. And he sent it to me. And it's very comical. But I mean, I literally leapt out of my seat when the shot went in because what else was I supposed to do? And again, Paul was to my left. Ted, you just heard the call from Ted to my right. Brent was in the studio on the board for that moment. Do you remember what your reaction was, Brent? Because listening, you were ahead of TV, obviously.
We were 10 seconds ahead. So we knew that it was going in. So
10 seconds early, yeah.
So we had the luxury of when it went in, to look at the TV and watch. So
were you shocked in that moment? Like everyone else was kind of shocked in that moment?
I remember Fletch was running all over the place and screaming, and I was just...
You're pretty measured.
I just couldn't believe he made it. So I was just pretty much waiting to see, what it actually looked like when it happened. But yeah, I just couldn't wait. And then, it was one of those things where, and I did the same thing when the Cubs won the World Series. I kept waiting for I know it's baseball. There's no flag. It's just I'm just waiting for something to happen.
Right.
It's just something's
whistles.
Something's going to happen. They're going to say that
0.0
there's a balk or something. I was waiting for some sort of foul or no foul. And then when it finally happens, oh, we're going to the championship game.
Where were you? 877-767-4760, or you can text us 70470. Start your message with the word team. Again, 70470. You can start your message with the word team, because there's nothing in 2023 that rivals it. We can talk about what happened. I think there was, expectations for the Padres heading into the year, unrivaled expectations. Fan fest, tens of thousands, if not more than that, at Petco Park. The acquisitions that they made, the Xander Bogaerts signing, all of the hype, but then they didn't live up to it. And then at the end of the year, Juan Soto being traded to the Yankees is a pretty big kind of U-turn, I would say, to some extent, or at least a turn for the organization. And we're going to remember that for a long time. There was Sean Lewis getting hired, of course, by San Diego State this fall as well after Brady Hoke retired. But one moment really does stand out above the rest. Now, Brian Dutcher said this in the aftermath after Lamont made that shot. And he's so level-headed because he's seen so much. I mean, he had already coached in 3 Final Fours. Dutch did as an assistant at Michigan. It was 89, right? When they beat Seton Hall in Seattle at the Kingdome, and they won it on a foul call against Seton Hall in overtime, and they won it at the free throw line. I think it was 89.
It was 88 or 89.
And then there was the Fab Five in 91 and 92. Like, think about that, Brent. Brian Dutcher on the bench you win a national championship at a free throw line, I think with Ramil Robinson, okay, against Seton Hall at the Kingdome in the waning seconds. That's amazing. You lose a Final Four on a timeout.
Chris Webber timeout, yeah.
You have all of the remarkable run of just the Fab Five in general over those 2 years, specifically that freshman year. And then all these years later as a head coach, you get back to a Final Four. And then the way you get to a championship game is on Lamont's shot, one of the most definable epic shots in the history of the tournament, and certainly the Final Four. But what Dutch said in the immediate aftermath was, it'll be remembered a lot more if we win on Monday night. It'll always be remembered in San Diego because it's an amazing moment. And like Matt Norlander's list, it would have led the list, or maybe it would have been ahead of Ed Cooley on the list if that was
slow down.
If that was the national championship game. But it was an amazing moment. It was an amazing moment. And you think about the history of the city, and we had this conversation after March and April of the year, and there have been huge moments. There was 84 and 98, and the Chargers made a Super Bowl. But, I mean, it's kind of right there, right? I mean, it's got to be right there with some of the biggest moments in San Diego sports history.
You know, it's right up there with the Lakers winning the NBA in-season tournament.
Oh, yeah, exactly. If not bigger. You could even argue bigger. There's some text rolling in on this if you want to weigh in. Where were you? 70470, start it with team, or 877-767-4760 if you want to call. 619 saying he was at the Padres game, had it on the big screen. Stadium went nuts. Love Jared. Jared, thanks for chiming in. 401 at the Viejas Arena, or at Viejas for the watch party. When he hit the shot, I blacked out and ended up laying on the courtside ad radio desks after storming the court. That's pretty cool. Other people weighing in right now on YouTube. You can find us on YouTube, by the way, searching for Jon and Jim. Rich McGuire saying he was at Petco. JD Gaucho saying he was working actually at Domino's when it happened. Maria saying she was at a bar. So, I mean, it's one of those moments. I think for most San Diegans, you don't even have to be an Aztec fan. I think if you're a San Diegan, if you live in this city, you're probably going to remember where you were when that shot went in. And now, like, you look ahead to 2024, is anything going to live up to that? Maybe. That's the beauty of sports. I mean, we don't know. We don't know what the Aztecs are going to do, basketball and football. We don't know what the Padres are going to do when they take the field. But, man, it's going to be hard to top that. And I think heading into 2023, there was a lot of excitement and anticipation for the Padres. Like, hey, this team could win a World Series. With what they've done, with what they've added, with their payroll coming off an NLCS, like, it's a little bit of World Series or bust coming into the year, which means it was a bust because they went 82 and 80, and that was with winning 17 of 19 or 20 of 22 at some point down the stretch. But it's San Diego. We can't only have nice things. In fact, a lot of times we can't even have nice things. Even having the shot go in, I've heard from so many people over the last 8 or 9 months, like, just so thankful. Like, that, having gone through it all as a San Diego sports fan, to kind of live through Lamont's shot. And so many Aztec basketball fans that have been here through all the ups and downs. But remember, before Steve Fisher and Brian Dutcher got here in 1999, the program, I mean, had never won an NCAA tournament game and hadn't had a winning team in forever, right? I mean, there had been some very good players, Tony Gwynn, right? Michael Cage. There had been some very good players, but from a team perspective, I mean, just a couple of teams that stood out above the rest, and they were down. Just like kind of before Brady Hoke got here the first time. San Diego State football was super down. And then the last 25 years, like, Aztec fans were always hoping a team was going to make a run. And they had Kawhi and that team in 2011. And a lot of people believe that if not for, a Phantom T, and if they beat UConn in that Sweet 16 game in Anaheim, maybe San Diego State's the national champion in 2011, not the UConn Huskies. And then there's 2014 with another Sweet 16 trip to Anaheim. And then there's last year, and I don't even know what the expectations were heading into last year. I think it was to win a game. They hadn't won a game in the tournament under Brian Dutcher, and they found a way to beat Charleston, and then they rattled off 5 wins.
Well, pretty much last year was to win a game, because remember, there's that narrative that Dutch couldn't win in the tournament.
Yep.
And, he shattered that and threw that out the window. But, that whole narrative was going around going in there because of the last couple of years. So
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I mean, it was, can they win a game? And then they did. And then in the second round against Furman, not only did they win, they won big. And Charles Barkley was saying this is men against boys. And he was saying, look out, Alabama. And then I remember the week leading up to Alabama, when I was watching the press conferences with Alabama's head coach, Nate Oates, but really specifically with his players, when asked about San Diego State, what I recognize is nobody had any clue anything about San Diego State. They figured, well, we're in Louisville. We're the top seed in the tournament. We're going to roll through San Diego State. Who the hell is San Diego State? We're big, bad Alabama. And the Aztecs controlled a lot of that game, but all of a sudden, I want to say Alabama went on something like a 20-2 run. They went from down 9, Alabama, to up 9. San Diego State took a timeout. Darion Trammell went on a personal 8-0 run. Then San Diego State took a lead. They never relinquished it. And all of a sudden, they're in the Elite Eight against, guess who? Creighton, the team that had beaten them in the first round the year before, in really remarkable fashion, because the Aztecs had something like an 8 or 9 point lead inside of 3 minutes to play. And the lead evaporated, and they lost then in overtime. And then you get the ridiculousness of the way that game ended, which, by the way, sets us up for tonight, because San Diego State is playing Gonzaga tonight at 6 p.m. And two of the main, I don't even know what the word would be, protagonists from a movie perspective in that story were Darion Trammell and Ryan Nembhard. Nembhard, a guard for Creighton, Trammell, of course, for San Diego State. In the waning moments in a tie game, Darion Trammell drove the lane, put up a floater, got hit on the hip in the air, and a foul was called against Ryan Nembhard, who has since transferred to Gonzaga. The rest we know. Trammell hit 1 of 2, the second free throw, and Nembhard's had to live with that throughout the offseason. Was it a foul or not? Then there's the FAU game, and then there's the national championship game where the Aztecs did pull to within 5 with 5 minutes to play, but then UConn, to their credit, outplayed San Diego State down the stretch. So that to me is just like I can go back to it real quick. Like I can close my eyes and I can specifically remember each of those 6 games. Like I really, really can. And that's my defining moment for 2023. You know, and maybe other people see it as, I don't even know with the Padres, to be honest with you, like the defining moment of 2023 from a Padres perspective, disappointment, trading Juan Soto, the untimely passing of Peter Seidler.
Yeah, none of them are good.
None of them were good last year. You're exactly right. What was the best thing that came out of it? Blake Snell won a Cy Young. That's an amazing individual accomplishment.
But
exactly.
He's leaving.
And then he's on the way out the door. You had really down years. You had Manny Machado, who's dealing with injury. You had Joe Musgrove and Yu Darvish dealing with injury. And you had a team that just never kicked it into any gear. Remember, Bob Melvin called him out essentially monthly for the first 4 months of the season, and none of it worked. When they finally got going, it was just way too late. And in fact, what happened late almost tells a different story than what the story was of the season.
Someone on the YouTube chat said the highlight of the Padres year was Fan Fest.
It honestly was. It honestly may have been. It might have been, Brent, when we went to hit golf balls in the offseason, whatever that was.
Oh, yeah, the links at the park.
Yeah, links at the park. I mean, not just, we didn't know it was going to happen after 2 games, but when you lose your first 2 games of the year at home to the Rockies, it's not exactly the greatest omen when you lose 2 games to start the year to the worst team in the National League. And now they got going. I remember there was a time late in April when me and Jim were doing a wrap-up show. They won game 1 of a series against the Dodgers at home. It was the Kershaw meme game. They won the game. They put up the crying Kershaw meme. Like, talk about a bad idea. And not to say that anything is related to, I mean, who cares at the end of the day? But from that point on, think about that. From that point on in April, even with their September run, they were under 500. The rest of the year, they were under 500. So, I mean, some of the bigger moments, honestly, to your point, were all disappointing. The Kershaw meme thing didn't work out. The health of Machado and Musgrove, Peter Seidler's untimely passing, and then the trading of Juan Soto, which I would always say, like, actions are louder than words. You trade Juan Soto, you've changed not your trajectory necessarily, but you've changed your plans since you acquired him. I mean, you don't trade Juan Soto unless there's a need to do it. So clearly they felt as if they needed to do it. Why? Because their payroll is too high. And he's going to make 30-something million this year, and he's going to make 400-something million moving forward. And they didn't have either the 30 in the short term or the 400 to 500 in the long term. So we can pretend as if Michael King and these relievers and this pitching prospect Drew Thorpe are better than Juan Soto, or we can say it realistically, which is you trade Juan Soto and you're changing the trajectory of the San Diego Padres moving forward. Now, I don't know what it looks like. It is still sports. They can absolutely win without Juan Soto. It just feels like it's not going to be easier, I wouldn't think, to win without Juan Soto, but that'll play out coming this March. March 20th, by the way, which is 80 days away, something like that. The Padres will be in Korea. They'll probably leave for Korea in 75 days, something like that. It's coming. It'll be here before we know it.
When do pitchers and catchers report?
Well, for the Padres, by playing a week early, I would think that they actually report before other teams like the Dodgers would, since they play a week early. I mean, the second week of February, Brent, I would think maybe the day after the Super Bowl, which is what I think it was this past year, if not before then. So, that February 10 to 15 range, we're not far off. I mean, we really aren't far off, 40, 45 days away from that happening. But that's how I remember 2023. How do you guys?